I was staring out of my hotel window in Tokyo when my phone rang. It was morning in Japan, but back home in Denver, it was late at night. A strange time to be calling unless something was wrong or deliberate. Daniel, her voice came through calm, almost amused. "I've filed for divorce." My hand tightened around the phone, but I kept my voice steady. "I see. And I've already sold the Nantucket beach house. Ryan and I need a fresh start." She laughed, through the phone, as if this was her victory lap. I didn't interrupt. I listened. That's something you learn after years in financial negotiations. Patience will show you more than words ever will. She kept talking. "The buyer's moving in next week. I figured you wouldn't mind staying at a hotel when you're back since you're always away anyway." I looked out at the skyline. Raindrops were sliding down the glass, blending city lights into one blur. After 13 years of marriage, this was how Clara ended it. Not with a confrontation, not with dignity, but with a call. In the rain. While I was 6,000 miles away from home. Let me back up. My name is Daniel Mercer, and I've spent nearly 20 years as a financial property advisor. My job is to see loopholes before anyone else does. I've saved small business owners from losing everything to a missed clause. I've found hidden value in contracts others rushed to sign, but I failed to apply those same instincts to my own marriage, and Clara knew that. She used to say, "Daniel, you treat every relationship like a ledger." She wasn't wrong, but at least a ledger tells you the truth. Clara Sanders. My wife was brilliant when I met her, sharp, focused, the kind of woman who didn't just walk into a room, she redesigned it with her eyes. We met at a real estate conference in Santa Monica. Within a year, we were married. No lavish ceremony, just her sister, my cousin, and a notary. We bought the Nantucket property 3 years later, a 2-story beachfront retreat with a wraparound deck and views that made you forget time. $135 million, almost all my savings. But it was worth it, or so I thought. I spent weekends patching up weathered boards, updating the kitchen, upgrading to hurricane-proof windows. Clara decorated hosted friends and dreamed up new design ideas. "This will be our forever place," she once told me, raising a glass of wine. I believed her. Looking back, the cracks didn't appear suddenly. They grew in silence. A year and a half ago, she stopped asking about my work. Her texts lost warmth. She stopped joining me on trips, even the ones she used to love. Then came the gym membership, 5-days-a-week sessions with Ryan Scott, a 32-year-old personal trainer who once asked me how much my Rolex cost. I didn't argue. I didn't snoop. I watched and waited. That's how I survived in business. And now it was how I would survive this. 11 months before Clara made that call, I quietly moved the Nantucket house into a trust, the Mercer Family Trust, with me as the sole trustee. The paperwork was mixed in with refinancing documents for an investment property in Phoenix. Clara signed everything, distracted, texting, not reading a single word. "This protects both of us," I had said then, and in some way it did. I never brought it up again. Back in Tokyo, I opened my laptop, forwarded the property deed to my lawyer, Elliot Tran, and my trusted title agent, Savannah Price. Subject line, "Urgent fraudulent sale attempt." I attached a note. "Clara believes she sold the Nantucket property. She hasn't. The trust holds the title. I need this blocked immediately." I spent the next hour staring at the skyline, not angry, just quiet. She thought I was passive, predictable. She thought I'd fold. She didn't understand that the man she married, the man who read every line in every contract, was still very much present. She forgot the simplest rule in my line of work. Intentions don't protect you, paperwork does. The next day, Elliot called. "She can't sell what she doesn't legally own," he said. "Any sale is invalid, and if she pushed it through, it's fraud." I nodded, letting that sink in. "She could face criminal charges," Elliot added, "but I assume that's not what you want." He was right. This wasn't about revenge. Not yet. This was about boundaries, about not being taken for a fool. I canceled the rest of my meetings and booked the first flight home. During the 9-hour journey from Tokyo to Boston, I didn't watch a movie. I didn't read. I sat. And I thought. For years, I had defended other people's property, helped them navigate betrayal in the form of contracts. Now it was my turn. Not to attack, but to reclaim. When I landed, I didn't call Clara. I didn't send a message. I rented a car and drove straight to Nantucket. The plan was simple. Let her see what she missed. Let her realize the cost of underestimating a man who knows how leverage works. The drive from Boston to Nantucket was quiet. Not just the silence in the car, but a deeper kind. The kind that settles when you've stopped arguing with the past. I didn't feel anger. Not yet. What I felt was calm. That kind of calm you only get when you've already made the decision. When the question isn't, should I act, but when will they realize I already did? It was just past noon when I pulled into the driveway of the beach house. My house. And yet, a black Mercedes convertible sat in my usual spot. Not Clara's, not mine. Ryan's, I assumed. I parked behind it, stepped out, and took a moment to look up at the home I had poured years of effort into. Fresh siding I'd installed with my own hands. The railing I rebuilt after a winter storm took it down. Memories, work, sacrifice, and now, betrayal parked on the front lawn. The door wasn't locked. I stepped inside. Voices floated from the kitchen, casual, relaxed, like it was already theirs. "I think if we open up this wall," a man said, "we'll get a full ocean view. Way better for resale." Clara's laugh followed, light, carefree, the kind of laugh that doesn't carry guilt. I walked toward them slowly, the click of my shoes deliberate on the hardwood floor I once refinished by hand. They looked up in unison when I entered. Clara froze for half a second, then forced a smile. "Daniel," she said, as if I were an unexpected guest, "you're home early?" I nodded once, clearly. Ryan stepped back, his hand slipping from around her waist. "This is awkward," he mumbled. "Maybe I should—" "Stay," I interrupted. "This involves you too." Clara's posture changed, instantly guarded, defensive. "We don't need to turn this into a scene, Daniel." "I agree," I replied. "So let's make this simple." I placed my briefcase on the counter, opened it, and slid a folder toward her. "These are copies of the trust documents you signed 11 months ago? The Nantucket property isn't in your name. It hasn't been for nearly a year." She stared at me, not speaking, then grabbed the documents, flipping through them, like she expected them to rewrite themselves. Ryan leaned in. "What's he talking about?" Clara's voice was thin. "This can't be right. I signed refinance paperwork." "You did," I said calmly, "and tucked inside that packet you also signed a deed transferring the house to the Mercer Family Trust. I'm the sole trustee. Legally, you can't sell this house. You never could." Ryan turned pale. "You said the sale was final." "I thought it was—" Clara snapped eyes, darting back to the paperwork. But I could see it, the realization hitting her like a silent wave. The foundation of her plan had never existed. I stood there, not triumphant, not cruel, just resolved. "I've already contacted our county's registrar. They've flagged the property. No title company will touch this sale. And your buyer, the shell company listed, has been traced." Clara's hands tightened around the edge of the counter. "You tricked me!" "No," I said simply. "You didn't read what you were signing. That's not a trick. That's your negligence." Ryan grabbed his keys and phone from the counter. "I'm going to wait in the car. Before you do, I added you might want to tell your brother, Troy Scott, that he's being investigated for fraudulent acquisition through a shell company. If he doesn't withdraw his offer by end of day, he'll be part of a criminal inquiry." Ryan didn't respond. He walked out. Clara stood alone now. Her voice dropped. "Daniel, we don't have to go through lawyers. Let's just split the proceeds and move on." I shook my head. "There are no proceeds, Clara. There is no sale, and there won't be." Her eyes hardened. "I'll fight this. My sister's attorney says a trust doesn't matter if the property was jointly maintained during marriage." I exhaled slowly. "Your sister's attorney is wrong. And this isn't about technicalities. This is about a pattern. The disappearing money. The credit card charges. The business you're starting with Ryan, funded with marital assets." She looked stunned for a moment, then turned cold. "You won't get away with this." "I'm not trying to get away with anything," I replied. "I'm simply reclaiming what's mine." I left the documents on the counter and turned to leave. "I'll be at the Mariner Hotel tonight. You have until Monday to leave. I'll be moving back in then." Clara didn't respond. But as I stepped out onto the porch, I heard her voice behind me, quiet, almost shaking. "This isn't over, Daniel." I paused, looked back at the home we'd once built together. "No," I said softly. "It ended the moment you sold something that didn't belong to you." I didn't go far that night, just enough to breathe. I sat by the water with a coffee and watched the tide roll in. Not angry, not even bitter, just awake. Sometimes the pain isn't in what someone does to you. It's in the moment you realize they never thought you'd do anything back. They assumed you'd break, and instead you bend just enough to rise. Sunday morning came quietly. I didn't sleep much, but not because of stress. It was focus, the kind that sharpens after the shock wears off. At 8:00 a.m., I met Elliot at his office in Cambridge. No paralegals, no assistants, just us, and a thin manila folder between us. "There's more," he said without preamble. He slid the folder across the table. Inside, bank statements, screenshots, property listings, and one lease agreement. I had my investigator dig, Elliot continued. Clara has been quietly transferring funds for nearly a year. He pointed to a highlighted column. Total withdrawals, $210,000, moved from your joint savings into an account under her name only. I sat back in the chair staring at the number. That was supposed to be our emergency fund, I said slowly. For medical issues, home repairs, job security. Elliot nodded. It became her startup fund. He slid the lease agreement forward. Retail space in downtown Providence, co-leased by Clara Sanders and Ryan Scott. They're opening a boutique fitness studio. My hand tightened around the folder. So this wasn't just about the house. No, Elliot confirmed. This was planned, calculated. And you were the final withdrawal. I closed the folder gently. I wasn't surprised. Not really. It wasn't the money. It was the method, the quietness, the precision. The way she laughed through the phone, thinking I was already defeated. She didn't just betray the marriage. She exploited my silence. Do we have options, I asked. Elliot leaned back. Legally, you're in a strong position. The trust protects the house, and you've already blocked further property transfers. We can freeze the joint accounts to prevent more movement. I nodded. And the $210,000, that's murkier. Technically, those were marital funds, but the fraudulent property sale gives us leverage. If this goes to court, we can pursue recovery of a significant portion, especially if we present it as pre-divorce misappropriation. And the fake buyer, he tapped the page, showing a business registry. The LLC that made the offer on the house, Harbor Holdings Group, is owned by Troy Scott, Ryan's brother. I exhaled, shaking my head slowly. They were going to flip the house after the sale, weren't they? Most likely, Elliot replied. Buy low under your nose, force a legal negotiation after the fact. Profit off your confusion. And if I hadn't transferred the deed into the trust, you'd have lost everything, Daniel. There was a long silence between us. Finally, I asked, what do we do next? Elliot opened a new folder. A clean document rested inside. This is a settlement proposal. We aim to avoid court if we can, but we're ready if we must. He outlined the terms. Clara returns $130,000 of the misappropriated funds. She formally relinquishes all claim to the Nantucket property and any assets in the trust. You waive any right to her business venture with Ryan. In return, no criminal charges are filed. I read it once, then again. It wasn't generous, but it was fair. And it gave her a door if she was smart enough to walk through it. That afternoon, Clara texted me. My lawyer says your trust trick won't hold. The house is still joint property. See you in court. I showed the message to Elliot. He barely reacted. She's getting bad legal advice, he said. We'll send the offer anyway. But I'd advise you to prepare for trial. I nodded. If she wants war, she'll get documentation. I spent the rest of the day in my hotel room. I reviewed our financial records, every credit card statement, every transfer, every travel expense that didn't involve me. Each page peeled back another layer of a life I didn't recognize anymore. Dinner charges at restaurants I'd never been to. Spa receipts, airline tickets listed as business research trips. By evening, I was numb, not in denial, but in that quiet mental space where clarity sets in. This wasn't just infidelity. It wasn't just poor judgment. It was fraud, disrespect, exploitation, and I wouldn't carry the shame of someone else's deceit. The next morning, I acted. By 9:00 a.m., Elliot had filed the divorce petition. We also submitted an emergency motion to freeze remaining joint accounts. By 10:00 a.m., it was official. Clara could no longer sell or even pretend to sell what she didn't own. At 11:30, I walked into First Harbor Bank. The manager, Ellen Brooks, had known me for years. After a warm handshake, I told her what I needed. Separate my remaining assets. Cancel all automatic payments except home utilities. Flag any suspicious access attempts from Clara's credentials. She nodded without hesitation. And one more thing, I added. Can you tell me when the next automatic payment to Elevate Fitness is scheduled? She checked the system. Tomorrow. $340. Monthly recurring since last year. Cancel it, I said, and flag the account. By 1:00 p.m., Clara called. I didn't answer. Then came a message from her sister. Then from a number I didn't recognize, likely her new attorney. I let them all go to voicemail. At 2:00 p.m., I returned to the Nantucket house. Clara's car was gone, but the Mercedes was still in the driveway. I unlocked the door. No changed locks. No surprise barricade. Inside, I found Ryan, standing in the living room, packing a gym bag. He froze when he saw me. I was just grabbing my stuff, he stammered. I said nothing. He zipped the bag and moved toward the door. Before he left, he turned. Look, man, he said this wasn't personal. Clara told me it was over, that you'd been distant for years. I raised an eyebrow. And the studio you're opening with stolen funds. Was that my fault too? He didn't answer. His silence was the answer. You can tell Clara I said that she has 48 hours to accept the settlement. Otherwise, we proceed to a contested divorce. And if necessary, fraud charges. His eyes widened. Fraud. I stepped aside to let him pass. Attempting to sell property she doesn't own. Funding a business with marital assets. Take your pick. As he walked out, I added, and tell Troy Scott, if he doesn't withdraw his offer by end of business today, he'll be named as a co-conspirator. The look on his face said everything. Less than an hour later, Elliot called. Troy pulled the offer. By evening, I changed the locks. I shut down the old security system, installed new cameras, new codes, new control. I ordered dinner from a seafood place Clara and I once frequented. But this time, I ate alone on the deck, watching the waves that didn't change, based on anyone's betrayal. Just movement. Forward, steady. 3 weeks later, I sat across from Clara in Elliot's downtown office. It was early morning, quiet. The kind of quiet that sits like fog between people who once shared everything. Clara hadn't said a word since she walked in. Her attorney, a man in his 30s wearing a suit that looked more expensive than experienced, shuffled papers trying to look confident. Me, I was still. Years of negotiation had taught me this. Sometimes silence speaks louder than indignation. Elliot opened a black folder and began without ceremony. Before we discussed settlement, he said, I'd like to submit 3 documents into the record. He slid them across the table. The first, the Mercer Family Trust deed with Clara's signature, dated and notarized. The second, bank statements showing a detailed trail of funds Clara had withdrawn over 10 months. And the third, a surprise even to Clara, a signed affidavit from Troy Scott Ryan's brother. He had confessed to the fraudulent attempt to acquire the Nantucket property through a shell company. Her attorney's eyes darted across the pages. His confident posture began to unravel. Clara still hadn't moved, but her hands had curled into tight fists on the table. Elliot spoke again calmly but with weight. The evidence is overwhelming. Ms. Sanders engaged in the misappropriation of marital funds, attempted to sell a property she did not own, and collaborated with external parties to execute a transaction rooted in deception. He paused, then added, We are prepared to move forward with full litigation, including the presentation of this affidavit to the district attorney's office, or we can settle today. The room fell into another long silence. Her attorney leaned over and whispered something. Clara still didn't look at me, didn't speak, but I could see it, the cracks in her composure. The weight of it all finally pressing down. After a minute, her lawyer sat up straight and said, We're prepared to settle. Elliot nodded. Our terms remain unchanged. He read them out clearly one more time. Clara returns $130,000 from the misappropriated funds. She forfeits all claims to the Nantucket house and any other assets in the trust. Daniel waives all rights to her business venture and agrees not to pursue criminal charges. Both parties agree to a clean and final divorce. Clara's voice broke the silence at last. Soft, cold. And if I refuse, Elliot didn't flinch. Then we present this to the DA. Fraud over $100,000 is a felony in Massachusetts. The buyers were part of a conspiracy. The evidence is notarized. You'll likely face criminal charges, Ms. Sanders. She looked at her attorney, then finally turned to me. Her eyes were sharp wounded but not sorry. You really would have let them charge me. I looked at her, really looked. 13 years of memories. Vacations, projects, plans, laughter I once thought was real. And now, just distance. I didn't do anything, I said quietly. You did. I'm just done protecting the person who stopped protecting me. Her expression didn't change, but I saw something behind her eyes, not guilt, not regret. Just the realization that I wasn't bluffing, that I had stopped playing her game the moment she picked up the dice. They stepped out to discuss privately. I sat in the room, staring at the signature lines on the agreement. We once signed mortgage papers together, anniversary cards, flight bookings, birthday presents. Now this. A final signature that would erase all of it. 17 minutes later, they returned. Her attorney cleared his throat. We accept the terms. No apology, no emotion, just words. That was fine. I didn't need an apology from someone who saw fairness as a threat. Elliot handed me a pen. I signed first, deliberate, steady, then Clara. I watched her hand move the same hand that had once held mine through every family dinner and every false promise of a future. When she finished, she slid the folder forward. It was done. No drama, no shouting, just documents, just truth. And that was more satisfying than any outburst could have been. Clara left the room first, didn't look back. I didn't expect her to. The moment the door closed behind her, I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding for months. Elliot looked at me. "You okay?" I nodded. Not joyful, I admitted, but clear, and I think that's better. Over the next few days, we finalized everything. Clara transferred the funds. I deposited them into a new account under my name only. I took those funds and bought a small commercial property in downtown Boston. Nothing flashy, but stable, reliable, a fresh start. The Nantucket house was mine again, fully, legally, quietly. 6 weeks later, I stood on the back deck with a coffee in hand, watching the sun rise over the Atlantic. The house was different now. The walls repainted, the kitchen updated, the furniture changed. But more than that, it felt different because I had reclaimed it. Not just physically, but emotionally. I heard that Clara and Ryan had opened their fitness studio on a smaller scale than they planned. Their social media updates slowed. Reviews were mixed. Some whispers said they were struggling. I didn't feel triumphant, no celebration. Just a quiet acceptance. People make their choices, and sometimes they have to live with them. I wasn't angry anymore. Not at Clara, not even at myself. I had seen it, felt it, walked through it. And I had come out the other side, maybe bruised, but not broken. That mattered. I kept the settlement documents in a locked drawer in my office. Not out of fear, but as a reminder. That boundaries matter, that silence isn't weakness, and that justice, when pursued with calm resolve, is the most dignified answer to betrayal. 6 months had passed. It was a Sunday morning when I finally let myself exhale. I stood on the wraparound deck of the Nantucket house, barefoot, coffee in hand, watching the horizon stretch open with light. The Atlantic shimmered like glass. Waves came in, waves went out, unchanged, unbothered, steady, much like I had become. The house looked different now. Not just because I'd renovated the siding or updated the kitchen, not just because the furniture had changed or the memories had shifted, but because it was mine fully, finally, peacefully. There were no ghosts in these walls anymore, just quiet, just space. The kind you earn after losing something, then choosing not to chase it back. After the divorce was finalized, I didn't throw a party, didn't go on a dramatic trip, didn't dye my hair, or sign up for skydiving, or reclaim my youth like some men do after betrayal. I did something else. I rebuilt on my own terms. The first thing I did was walk into a small commercial building on Tremont Street in Boston. An old friend from the industry had been looking to offload the space. Nothing glamorous, but functional. 3 tenants, 2 offices, 1 cafe downstairs. I bought it. Cash. No debt, no strings. It wasn't just an investment. It was an anchor. A reminder that I still knew who I was, that I still had something to offer, and that even if a part of my life had collapsed, the rest didn't have to. I spent the next few months decluttering more than closets. I changed my email address, updated my estate plans, revised my will. I met with my accountant, reorganized my retirement portfolio, split every trace of our old life into a series of structured, manageable steps. That's how you rebuild after betrayal, not in one dramatic swing, but in deliberate, methodical movement, like laying bricks, one at a time. Clara never reached out again. No apology, no request for closure. Occasionally I'd hear things secondhand. The studio in Providence had opened, yes. But the opening was modest. There were rumors of late payments, poor management tension between her and Ryan. Some said the place was floundering. Others said they were rebranding. I didn't check. Didn't scroll through her business page. Didn't dwell. That chapter was closed. And when you close a chapter right, you don't go back to reread the pain just to feel something. You let it stay closed. What surprised me most wasn't how angry I wasn't. It was how calm I became. There was no joy in her failure, only sadness in the possibility that all of this, the betrayal, the lies, the fraud, could have been avoided with one honest conversation. But maybe honesty was never the point for her. Maybe control was. And when that slipped, the game collapsed. One morning, I got a call from Savannah Price, my longtime title agent. "Hey, Daniel," she said, "just checking in. How's the house treating you?" "Better every day," I replied. "I've got something you might be interested in," she continued. "Another trust-structured property, commercial, clean title, solid income stream. Want me to send it over?" "Absolutely." We talked for 10 more minutes about numbers, zoning, and lease lengths. Then we hung up, and I smiled. Because in that moment I realized life didn't end with the divorce. It expanded. You don't always get justice through apologies or punishment. Sometimes justice is peace. It's the sound of the ocean before dawn. It's the comfort of knowing your name is the only one on the deed. It's the realization that the person who tried to dismantle you only reminded you how well you were built. I walked back inside the house. The hardwood floors were warm from the sun. The new paint caught the morning light just right. This wasn't a trophy. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't some monument to my survival. It was just home. And that was enough. I sat at the kitchen table, opened my laptop, and checked the morning reports for my properties. Everything was stable, predictable, quiet. No fires to put out, no legal notices to chase, no surprises lurking in my inbox. Just business, order, balance. The kind of life I once thought was boring, but now deeply valued. A friend recently asked me, "Do you ever miss her?" And I paused, not because the answer was hard, but because I wanted to respect the question. "No," I finally said. "I miss who I thought she was, but that person never existed." And that's the thing about betrayal. It doesn't just steal your trust. It steals the version of someone you built in your mind. Once that illusion shatters, what's left isn't pain, it's clarity. And clarity heals. I still carry some scars. You don't walk through 13 years and walk away spotless. But I carry those scars with pride now. They remind me of what I allowed, what I learned, and what I will never ever tolerate again. So to the man or woman sitting in silence, wondering if they should fight for what's left or protect what's theirs, let me say this. You don't have to burn it all down, but you do have to stop handing the matches to people who keep lighting fires behind your back. Protect your peace, even if it means walking away from a life you built with love. Because sometimes the most loving thing you can do is rebuild without them. That's what I did. And for the first time in a long time, I wake up to waves, not warnings. And I sleep through the night. Not because everything is perfect, but because everything is mine. And I think that's all the closure I ever needed.